Hello, 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 everyone. Mike Arnold here, co-founder, Path Trading Partners, along with Bob Iacchino. Got some interesting comments to go over, but first, look at this dedication. Amit, hey, hello, team from Mahogany Bay. One of the stops on the cruise. You're on a cruise and you're turning into this. I mean that is dedication. I don't know if I tune in to listen to me on a cruise. I appreciate it, Amit. I really appreciate it. But, oh boy, I mean, maybe you do have your priorities right, you know? I don't know. Hey, Wavy. Hey, Christoph. Looks like we got a rally. Yeah, we did. Hey, Ken. Interesting bump today. What was interesting about it, Ken? All right, George. Afternoon, Mike. I'm up 500 on S&P long and terrified to hold overnight. We should dive into that in a second. Let me know, George, why you're terrified. Do you have on too big a position? Are you afraid of the loss? Are you afraid of the profit turning into the loss? What is it? You got to identify what's going on with that because, that's the first step to figure out what is really going on. I just can't give you any advice on how to address that because there's multiple different things that can lead to that. Hey, Waka Waka. Sorry it was not good for you today. Yo-yo, like no tomorrow triggering stop losses. There are days like that. There are days that I've felt like that too. Yep, there's one of those days no matter what you do, trades just go against you. That's true in trading. And sometimes it is just, I was just going to say, should have known and just walked last. I was going to say, sometimes it's best to just shut it down and walk away. It's just, even you see that with athletes sometimes, I was a huge fan of Michael Jordan growing up with the Bulls. And there are games, I mean, even him, it was just like, what happened? He couldn't hit a shot. It's just, it happens sometimes. And it happens that, things get whipsawed, strategies, and it's really tough in these bear markets, especially with the volatility. George, I'm saying with you, Waka Waka, same boat. Well, you don't want to be on the boat with Waka Waka. You want to be on the boat with Amit. You want to be on the cruise ship. Let's see. Good evening, Christoph. Could somebody do me a favor? Could somebody shoot me or multiple people we were having issues again with the support at Path Trading Partners email. That support at pathtradingpartners.com email. Could a couple of people shoot me an email? I'm still trying to debug stuff. So if you have tried to email me over the weekend or at the end of last week, I think we were having bounce issues again, DNS issues. I was sorting that out today from my old technology background, unfortunately. Waka Waka, I hear you, pal. It was an absolute crushing day for options. Slow grind up, barely got any return. And that's why sometimes it is challenging with the options, especially shorter term dated options. If you don't get if the volatility is high and you just get that slow grind, the volatility also comes down with it. Good morning, Sash. Good afternoon, Sashi. Not good morning. Where's my head? Let me just get this out of the way. By the way, if you are new here, please do consider subscribing, ringing that bell, and hitting the like button. Longer-term viewers, please come back, leave some comments after the live stream's over. I appreciate the ramp up in comments. We're going to be getting new people. Also, tune into other things like check out my weekly sector overview if you haven't already. I know a bunch of people already have here. And also the new Jim Iorio podcast dropped today. If you haven't had a chance to check it out this evening. Or when it's slow tomorrow. It's on the channel. So, that's what I just have to say. Let's see. To be honest, with all these techniques, it's nice to be in the know. Even if I'm not trading, it helps to be in touch. So when I get back, I'm not left out. That's perfect. I'm really happy you're here on it. I mean, that was just, wow. I mean, on a cruise and everything. It's really hard trading full time. Some days you just have to be okay with no money. Yet you cannot. Oh, I want to address that too, Wavy. I've been in this industry since 92, as a lot of you know, and I would not try to judge things. It's not like a job which you can count on, all right, I worked my 8 hours, I worked my 10 hours, I should clear this. And then one of the biggest issues I've seen with people is when they say I have to clear 500, I have to clear 1,000, whatever the goal is, and they try to make it happen every day. There are some days there's just not going to be money. I like to do things from a longer term perspective, especially on a monthly basis, because even there are some weeks that just stink, that there are no good setups, that the markets just absolutely stink. So when you start getting away from, I have to make money like every day, I have to bank this every day, or I have to bank this even every week, and you start getting into, hey, when the markets are good, then you that's when the money comes in. When the markets are crappy, that's when it's best to sit on your hands. Or if you don't have any setups, I've gone through weeks where, from even a shorter term perspective, there are just nothing triggered on setups. Okay, so trying to force things are deadly. Uh it's like when I used to count cards and do all that. Also, that's why you press your bets when the shoe's in your favor. The when the cards are in your favor, when the deck, if you're counting cards, when you and shuffle tracking and everything, when, all right, I'm here. We're getting a streak. We should be getting a streak of a lot of face cards. Uh, and I'm going to press my bets. I'm going to press my bets. And when the shoe's got a lot of potentially low cards in it, I'm going to go table minimum, because there are times that you press the bets when things are going and it's really great trading, and there are times that you dial back. Now in gambling, you have to, if you're sitting at the table, you got to do a table minimum. In trading, you don't even have to do something. It's why sometimes even in August I'll take weeks off, because the markets sometimes get so thin, it's just crappy. It's just like a lot of times I'll extend the trading duration at the end of the year because there's thinner markets and you can get whipsawed and everything else. So I'll just go with longer duration trades. Uh, I miss my job sometimes just a little bit. I hope it's just very little waka waka. I will thank you, Wavy. I mean Wavy. Sorry. The story of 2022 is I have a gain, then the next day it gaps down and rips down into a loss. So one of the things I really like to do with counter trend trading is when it hits a target, based off price action, I like to, when counter trend. Now, when I mean counter trend, let me just jump that, then we'll jump back here in a second. So counter trend, we're against the daily and weekly rotation zones. Can we rally? Yes, of course we can rally. That's the point. You get these rallies into them. That's where I really like to get up when we hit these key levels. I like to take at least half of my trade off of and get my stop to break even. So I can keep a break even stop. All right. And even if it gaps beyond my stop, I still have locked in something. So if I take that small loss on the other half, you can even go 60-40. I don't know your size you trade, but you can still roughly size it. So when I'm going with a trend, which is currently down, I will let it run farther. When I'm going against a trend, I get more aggressive with locking in partial of the profits and getting my stop to break even or close to break even. I don't do stupid where, all right, if it comes down and hits my break even stop, I still want to be in the trade. So I don't put myself in a bad position. So if I have to go a little farther than I do. However, I try to lock in something, keep my reward to risk properly, because now I'm going against the longer term move. So I get more aggressive in locking something in, then I leave a little something on to let it run to the next profit targets. That's how I handle that. I know over time things will be better, but I guess doing this full time for less than 5 years, yeah, you got to learn something. I've had down months. Okay, it's possible. They're not big down months, but there are down months where it was just horrible trading. Even with stuff in the 70% with good reward to risk, there can be a bad whole month where you look at it, you go, oh, well, that was a red month. I was down 1% over that month. But then you get a great month where just things rip, and you go, oh, that was a fabulous month. That was up 7-8% easily. That's just the way it works. Hey, Dan Jet. So back to this. Let's see. Back to this. Sorry, I got sidetracked. Hope I didn't bore everyone. Just trying to help out with some thoughts and some experience. So thanks for sticking through this. We'll get to some market analysis. Again, that's the whole point, and we got a great community here to help each other, which is the point. It's not to hear me ramble on. I want everybody else to help everybody with all their knowledge and experience. And if you're newer, please ask questions. Please put it out there because that's the whole point of this community. We're there to help, and that's at least my perspective. I believe that helping people get better and growing, the rewards are wonderful just from seeing people flourish and succeed in a very challenging industry. So tomorrow we have the PMI flash readings tomorrow, 8:45. So that's after the open, and 9 we have new home sales. Those are potentially market moving. So keep that in mind. We will touch base on it again tomorrow. We have Richmond Fed, which I'm going to see if how big a drop this is potentially. That again, if it's a big drop back down towards zero, could be market moving. And then we have Powell speaking. So again, we have some things tomorrow that could trigger some additional volatility. The map, as I said in the sector overview, and I mentioned even yesterday, I believe I was focused on some mega cap stuff more so. And Apple up 4%. Apple did issue an aggressive buy. Microsoft, I believe, issued an aggressive buy. Google did not. Amazon didn't. Tesla, a little bounce. I posted that a little double in Discord today. Banks, a little rip higher, but a lot of red. Oil's up. Oil up nicely still. And I told you in the sector overview, the major thing I was still focused on oil stocks more so than other energy stuff. Healthcare, which we talked about in the sector overview, also pretty nice move on some of those. FOMC, interesting enough, this is starting to creep up again with a 75 basis point. Not enough. I mean, it's at 12%, but it is starting to creep up. I'm just monitoring this because if this really starts getting some traction, it could get interesting. And we are still in negative gamma. The gamma flip at this point isn't till around 4,300 roughly. 4286. So keep that in mind. We're a long way off from zero gamma. So we amplified moves both up and down. Just a reminder, we had Zoom after. I know they gapped up, but they gave earnings weren't so great, but guidance, they guided strong for second quarter. Did not see advanced auto parts yet. I was getting prepped for the live stream. All right. Where do we sit? Appreciate the advice. Your decades of market experience helps all of us. Yeah, and just keep sharing with each other, please. Wall Street crooks should be in prison for pumping this garbage. I mean, I think Zoom will actually have to dial back their guidance. It's going to be interesting. Zoom will be an interesting play. Their PE is coming back down to more sane levels, but they pumped their earnings guidance, so we shall see what happens. All right, we had that nice rally. S&P up 197 basis points at the time of this recording. Here's this little 1 hour. I'm still going to keep watching. Again, we're into the clear path, stalling out the second. Little tried to break down, and then the shake and bake moved to the other side this morning. So just a reminder where I'm tracking, and everybody can track this. This is still the key line in the sand now is about 38.73. So any pullbacks still above 38.73 still favor a continued rally. Right now, overnight, my major support is about 39.50. That's what I'm watching. If we did drop below that, I'd be focused on about 39.14, 39.15. That was the support area today. I'm not even going to bother with this little pattern right here. That's the bigger stuff. Now we are still in that clear path. The 62.5 is right with this horizontal channel, about 39.87. I'm going to see if we tap that tonight. And right above that, about 39.91, we have the prior major breakdown zone. Then we have another clear path move. So I am definitely still focused on upwards price action. The short term, the cycles on the 1 hour, 4 hours are at the top. Daily trying to bottom and turn up. So we could get a slight pullback before we make another push. And that's just on the 1 and 4 hour basis. But I'm watching for the continued push. Closing into the daily rotation zone. But the real thing that gets the next move on is if we get that close above that 62.5, and then I'd really be focused on, remember, the 87.5, 40.60 to about 40.96 with the rotation zone, the other side being 40.76 right in the middle of that. So I'm definitely focused on that still short term. Even if we do pull back, even if turnaround Tuesday we pulled back a little and stayed above that 62.5, I'm still focused on the upwards price action. Especially remember, if you're new tuning in here, weekly cycles are finally starting to tune up, and we're a long way off from the weekly rotation zone. So we still do have short-term upside potential. Long-term, just to reiterate for new viewers, very bearish long-term still. So do I think this is a long-term bottom? No. And you also had this short-term confirmed divergence. We closed above Thursday's highs I talked about, which is the aggressive entry, aggressive long entry that can still be traded. That also triggers that can still be traded short-term intraday on moves up. NASDAQ did not trigger any short-term entry, up 181 basis points. NASDAQ was still struggling to really get some traction on. You see here this key resistance area still stalling out there. Spiking down, hitting that first harmonic, coming back to that other key area, then moving on back up. At this point, we have just the harmonics trying to get through. So we start getting a close, above this 12,100. You're into the advanced clear path. I'm then targeting about 12,175 to 180, and then 12,250 coming in right by a significant level. So both these have some significance. That's the upside. Key area on any pullback now, the major support is about 11,850. What would tip it back to negative would be below 11,714. Let me deal with, I got a couple too many. Remember, you get a close above 12,180 on a daily basis, then we really start targeting the upwards price action. So that's where we sit with that on the NASDAQ. Let's see. Well, naturally, most of the indices are going to follow each other, but that's why you also identify. Now, what would I be in first? I like the S&P with this rally back and the Dow. The Dow on outperformance. The NASDAQ still lagging, so that's the last one I'm turning to, especially since the NASDAQ didn't even trigger that daily buy. But many times, unless you get something like a major component in an index just getting hammered, they'll move in step, but they won't move to the same exact amount. You see the NASDAQ lagging at 181 basis points versus the S&P up 200 basis points, the Dow up 210. Now the Dow coming up through that horizontal channel break. Let me see here. Let me take a couple of these off real quick. Let me just go back with the Dow. What breaks the uptrend? The key area on the Dow is although back at 31,087. So first area of pullback I'll be watching is about 31,585. Now flipping this around. We're stalling out that 62% harmonic right here. We did not get the close above that on the daily yet. Key pullback area I'm watching is about 31,640 for overnight to about 31,573. And this is definitely into that clear path move. Also, you see prior support and that 62% harmonic lining up nicely. But if we can get a push through this tomorrow, next area is about 32,150, the next major area. And let's see where these harmonics line up. 32,091 to then 32,150 would be the next area, then about 32,259. Not a great cluster with these harmonics. I'll mainly focus on those middle ones. So that's where we sit with that. Now we're into the daily rotation zone also, so I'm really focused on, especially to over the next couple of days, to really target the upper end here of the rotation zone. Russell, little bounce up. We had this little double right off the open coming down, first, second target, and then the reversal back up. But the Russell's also only up 131 basis points. When I said the NASDAQ was the last one I'm turning to, it's really the Russell the last one I'm turning to. And this cannot be traded as a double top, by the way. There's way too many tops in here. I'm really sticking clear of the Russell. The DAX on a continued rally tomorrow, 14,315, major support coming back down about 13,960. Crude, really a neutral day. Still can't get a close above that short-term little area cluster here. That's what I'm watching, this area between about 111.75 to 111.31. Still watching that for the key up move. There's no other great patterns in play right here. So until something sets up with a little stronger, it's moment to moment with crude. Gold tests the other end of the rotation zone and pausing. Would not be surprised to see a slight little pullback before another push higher. Notes, interesting. I sort of screwed up here. Well, I didn't screw up. I missed something. And nobody called me out on it. By the way, the double top is confirmed but not triggered. I was waiting for a trigger on here. So I'm still waiting for a trigger to go on a closing basis, since this is more an uptrend and it's just barely dipped into it. But what did I mess up on? Let's get to that. This is a beautiful, let me pull these off so you can see it better. This is a beautiful inverse head and shoulders. Shoulder, head, shoulder. Hope everyone can see that. Confirmed. So you do the projection from where it broke right here, confirmed and triggered, pulling back, which again to this neckline. Even if it pulled back down here, it's still already triggered. Does not invalidate the pattern. What would invalidate the pattern? The aggressive way is what we call a walk away trend line, where if it closes back below the trend line, I actually prefer on this kind of setup, especially that counter double in there. I actually prefer just using the 62.5, which would be 118.13. That way, even if this triggers and pulls back, because it's already confirmed and triggered, yeah, people say, well, it's making another shoulder, fine, but the pattern already triggered. So it was already in place. Now, what's interesting with this, again, just trying to do some teaching, is if I already had this in place. For some reason, I just had a brain fart and didn't see that. But you see, we've got this first reaction again to the weekly rotation zone, the little pullback. And look, if it does push higher, and I'm watching for this medium-term bottom to come in, all three of these targets are within the weekly rotation zone. So we could easily come up here into the weekly rotation zone, make a slightly bigger correction, and then roll over again as part of the longer term play. So I just wanted to point that out. So I get asked with these head and shoulders all the time. This is the kind of inverse head and shoulders pattern you want. Downward sloping neckline. You measure from the head to the neckline and then project from where it breaks. And those are the way you do the targets. There's your little teaching moment with the notes. Dollar index, again, continuing lower, still watching. We have this pattern mapped out. This was a sloppy regular head and shoulders. All right. Why is it sloppy? Because it's extended shoulder, but this little part over here, this is fine. This is fine. Extended shoulder, but it still works It's just a little sloppier and a slightly lower probability by a couple of percentage points, but I'm still watching 101.81 to 101.29 as the next targets. Again, I've talked about this for a couple of weeks, was watching for the longer term top in the dollar index, which definitely appears to be in place for the bigger pullback. Remember, extended, we're now just tapping that weekly rotation zone, and we can easily continue back into it. Even if we extend the harmonics back to the major low, look, this little mini head and shoulders doesn't even take us back to the 25% from this whole run up. So that's how overextended it was. So I'm going to watch what happens when it completes this pattern and if it taps the 25% to see how it reacts at that level. But I have no buy patterns yet. Let's see. Wow, you guys are really going. Oh boy, I'm missing a lot here. We got Wall Street crooks. We don't need to talk about Wall Street crooks. Yeah, I completely agree. The SEC has become a joke over the years. And we've heard me talk about that before. I wish they would either. Let's just disband it. If they're not going to enforce anything, let's just disband it. Well, we don't want Taiwan to fall. That's a whole nother story. What else do we have? Thank you, George, for the super chat. Again, that all completely goes to support the channel. Not to buy me drinks or anything. It does go straight back into the channel to make it better. Every one of these donations goes into the channel. Thank you for your being there, not just for technical analysis and the macro with Bob, but you try to get everyone. You try to get to every one of us, and we appreciate you. Yes, I do. I really do. I care about everyone who's here. And I know I'll never probably get to meet most of you. I'd love to meet you guys in person. And if I ever do, great. If you're ever where I am living, I'm still in Chicago at the moment, then you let me know if you're in the area. When I move, I'll let you know where I am. So, I'm just seeing if they're splitted my notes long between ZN and ZB. That can be a good strategy too. Oh, ZB. There's your ZB. Also with ZB, you have the, let me map this out for you, Christoph. And now you can see. So I'm going from the inverse head and shoulders works on ZB too, which is the 30-year futures for somebody. Why is this important? Because this works. You can do this on stocks. You can do it on FX. You can do these strategies on anything. That's why I'm walking through. Up to the neckline. Here's where it broke. So this is where I'm going to do the projection from. Then I'm going with the same targets as the double. That's what works out. So, and we got the close. We got the break of the neckline, the close above the neckline. So that is triggered. So your targets on the ZB are 143.25, 145.12. I think that's a 12. It's right around there, 10, 11 or 12. 147.06. Same difference on this one. Oops, I got to put back on my anchors. And you're going to keep ratcheting this up. That's really nice because as it ratchets up, you can always trail below the 62.5 on a closing basis. And if you need a spike down basis to where you don't want to wait for the close, use the 75%. 137.20 would be the stop right now. So is this pullback fine? Yes, completely fine. And you still have a very similar pattern with the, again, this is for learning purposes also. So if it does continue the bigger pullback, which is, we've not got the close below this yet, you still have it just retracing into the right back to this 50 and this prior support area. So that keeps it still in play. Hopefully we'll be moving to Arizona. Trying to still work out one little logistic problem. But that's what it's looking like. VIX not much going on here, especially with this rally. Not a big pullback yet. So VIX still decently elevated, sort of caught in this consolidation. That's my only grounds for concern that it didn't pull back more. Tesla's still weak relative to the rest. I would be interested in a long over 720. We had this little double pattern. And Tesla really struggling. Tesla with this. So 677.76 hit the first target, 684.37, and my major target 690.97. Above there, my next target 711 to about 720. And these would be just short-term plays. I'm still watching also Tesla coming off a little divergence bottom at the bottom of the channel and a major harmonic cluster. So again, longer term, watching for a rollover. Short term, we got the little plays. Where would you have to keep a longer term stop or a longer term, where is this move becoming valid with this little ramp up today? Really easy, just use the same technique. The 62.5 is about 650. So a close back below 650, we retest the lows probability-wise. Guaranteed, no, but in the probabilities, upper 70%. So that's where it sits. Just keep an eye on about 680 tomorrow in early morning resistance. It would be more towards the Prescott area, wavy. So little higher desert. I used to live in Scottsdale. That's actually where I met my wife. So if I had to pick a long like Apple, Apple today had a daily, it closed above Thursday's high, daily aggressive buy, again aggressive because it's against the rotation zone, but it did trigger the buy signal, and that can even be used intraday for intraday trades. So remember, longer term still bearish on Apple, but shorter term coming up the rotation zone. My next targets for tomorrow are about 145.38. Then major target is back to 150 without reassessing. So that's into the daily rotation zone on a continued rally. So we have that. The Qs just stalling at this 50%. I'm, again, you can do the reverse harmonics to figure out where that 62.5. I'm watching for tomorrow on a continued rally, 296. Then we get the close above there. Then I'm targeting roughly about 303. So that's my upside on the Qs. Remember, against the daily rotation zone. And the Qs also did not trigger the buy pattern yet. But the spiders did. The spiders did trigger on the close above Thursday. The spiders did, and closing right at here. So I'm very interested still in upside. We have a lot of things still for confirming short-term bullish plays. And you see stalling out right in front of the 62.5. So tomorrow I'm watching for the close above 398.18 area. Then I'm roughly targeting 405 into the daily rotation zone. So that's why these are still aggressive plays, because we're going into the daily rotation zone and anything can still roll over. By the way, this double is still in possible play longer term, but it does not have to trigger. Just because you see it on the chart, it's nowhere near triggering yet. So that would be rolling this short-term bottom into more of a medium-term bottom if that did trigger. Any chance ZM can go red tomorrow? Let's peek in at Zoom. Go red? You mean pull back? Or I mean, Zoom is just coming out of cycles at the bottom. Very oversold conditions. Spiking above the daily rotation zone. You could watch for You're going to need some NASDAQ weakness to start targeting the gap fill play. So yeah, you might be able to pull back a little on the open, but I wouldn't attempt anything short unless it targeted the gap fill play. We can take a look at it tomorrow morning if you remind me, and we can map those out roughly. I want to see where it's trading pre-market. But what you're going to want to be very careful of, if it closes above about 98, then statistically it favors a potential run to about 105. And where would that take it on the weekly? See, that just takes it into that weekly rotation zone. Now, it's going to be slightly lower on that, but this, you could easily see a run back up to 105 to 109, especially if the NASDAQ does keep a rally on. And they gave forward guidance. I'm not buying it, but you got to trade the patterns. And I was not playing any earnings off of them, by the way. The only thing going if you're looking for downside moves is you have conflicting patterns, because daily's at the top but hasn't rolled over yet. Weekly's at the bottom. RSI is neutral in the middle. RSI will shift up with this gap tomorrow, but even on a slight pullback, it doesn't favor a full-blown gap fill at this point. Can I touch on how come these harmonics and fibs are so spot on? It's more, well, the harmonics, I've just, as with research, is somewhat of a natural way things tend to trade. And harmonics test out better than fibs, but if you have to use the fibs near the harmonics. I've done extensive testing, and that was even before algos. Now, algos have latched on to certain things, like the 50% level. And algos have latched on to more of the fibs because people have programmed a lot of the fibs into that. But I did a lot of this testing even back in the 90s before there was all these algos as we know them now existed, and they were spot on back then. So it's just some natural order. Is it 100%? No, because nothing can be that way. But once you learn to watch how the levels move, you can really start to see the rhythm a lot better in the markets. So, algos are trading over 60% of the Tesla options, even more on the weekly chains. The algos are trading a lot right still with, yeah. The options volume has started to die down. Gamma juice is no longer there. And yeah, because it's going to rotate into other things. It's just because now you have also more of the Elon factor constantly creeping in. So there's more unpredictability with just the ramp up moves. And you still have the algos with Tesla trading a lot of stuff. But I'll call it the mystery buyer. The mystery buyer that was there to juice things at very specific times with Tesla call options. Big mystery buyer player seems to not be around as much anymore. That's all I've witnessed. With that, let's see. We got those mega caps. Let me look back at the ratios. Mega cap ratio turning up. Remember, we still have, I mapped this out. We still have the double, but we're a long way off on that. So the mega caps do have some more, without even triggering this double, do have some more room to run to the upside, especially even to the daily rotation zone, which wouldn't take it, which would just take it slightly higher. But I'm keeping an eye on that mega cap index. And value versus growth. Still, it really needs to get going above about 1.68 to really get a stronger play in the value versus growth play. And that does favor short-term growth and then shifting back to longer-term value. All right, everyone. What's going on with Snap? Oh. That'd be ugly. What happened with Snap? Does anybody have any information on that? $18.59, then $16.24. Again, this is why you got to be careful with these things trading against the rotation zones. But that is ugly on Snap. Wow. And it was already oversold. Back to daily rotation zone and just blistered. By the way, Snap, just for those who are looking at it longer term, closed weeks ago below that 62.5, so it still favors a return to 1463 at least. So this is not something that I'd be aggressively trying to build a long-term position in. All right, Snap sees second quarter revenue adjusted EBITDA below low end of guidance. So they guided lower. We're going to see a lot more of this coming up. We're going to see a lot of guidance. Unlike Zoom that guided up, we're going to see a lot more companies guiding down, I personally believe, for second quarter. Snap macroeconomic environment has deteriorated further. Well, I think that's a no-brainer. Wow. Snap misses revenue thanks to Snap. Usually NASDAQ doesn't move much in PM, but is moving down. Well, right now it's the pause period on the futures, so I have to wait till it restarts. But we might see that pullback. That might be a little impetus for a pullback. How much? Snap isn't that major, though, so we'll just have to see if it triggers other things and we get that slight bigger pullback. But remember, as long as you're not below 11,700, 11,710, it's just a pullback. Chris Plummer, Palantir, do we retest 750? Palantir was just, it's the same. Do we retest 750? You still need to see the break. We get inside day today. So nothing. We still have the horizontal channel breakout or breakdown. Nothing's changed. You got daily cycles rolling over and weekly cycles at the bottom. This is, and you are against the rotation zone. RSI dead set in the middle. So it's either a breakdown or a breakout play. Same thing as I talked about before. Breakout play above about 840, breakdown play below 773. You start breaking down below 773, yeah, I think you'll easily test 750. And then possibly the gap fill. But at this point, it's in no man's land. It's in consolidation. And if I have to make a longer-term bet, even on a push-up, my longer-term bet is we get another rollover play. So long-term, I'm not bullish. Short-term, if you break above this key level, why am I bullish? Because you can still run the other side of the rotation zone, and you still have a gap left behind. But that's only once it breaks out. All right. I already covered the spiders. I still we triggered a daily aggressive daily buy, even if we get a slight pullback on turnaround Tuesday. And I already talked, you'll have to go back to rewatch this stuff, but unless we close below the 62.5 of this most recent up move, it still favors a continuation push higher, even if we pause or get a slight pullback tomorrow. Now, just a recap for people, and then I'm going to wrap this up. Remember, we have some market moving stuff potentially tomorrow with the PMI flash stuff, home sales, and then Powell. So we could see some interesting things still tomorrow, but you got to, from my perspective, I got to still trade the longer term price pattern, which is based off this up move, the 62.5% level. So as long as we don't get a close below that, I'm going with the short term favorable patterns, which show we should continue to the upside for a bit longer. If you're buying stuff like Snap, Peloton, and other Kathy stuff, you're taking high risks. I completely agree. I would rather, if I'm playing these kind of things for the upside, remember, I'd rather be playing an Apple, a Microsoft. By the way, Microsoft also triggered the aggressive buy today, and that's even before this potential double triggers. Now, am I bullish on these super long term? No, because we've already triggered bearish patterns. But can you get corrective rallies? Yes. But I'd rather be in a Microsoft or an Apple for upside plays than I would into stuff like Snap. I wouldn't even want to be in Zoom right now. You know, I don't want to be in stuff with that Kathy's playing, and I don't want to be in when we get bounces. The only time you get stuff like that is when you get the short squeezes, but I don't want to participate. I'd rather be in something stable, like the Microsoft or the Apple. That's, look, how much was Microsoft up today? Microsoft was up 320 basis points. Apple, it was up 400 and something basis points. Not AAP, AAPL. I'm like, that's not right. See, Apple was up 401 basis points today, triggering a buy. So these two still favor statistically higher prices, even if they do pull back a bit. Thank you, Lauren, for the super sticker. Thank you very much. Lauren is like I want to give you a super sticker, Lauren. As I give you a gold star for the wonderful support of this channel. Thank you so much. Amit, you want Netflix? Again, everybody give a shout out to Lauren. Wonderful, wonderful supporter of this channel. Not much has changed on Netflix. I mean, it's still just sitting. If we get the continued rally, it's got some more upside. It's in the daily rotation zone. As long as you don't get the close back below 175 area, I'm favoring short-term upside in this. The only little gotcha is the cycles on the daily are at the top, but the weekly's turning up. So we could see a little more things to the upside. Again, as long as it does not get the daily close below 175.10, 175.10 about, we're fine. I'd stick with any short-term bullish positions. And then longer term, watch for another rollover play or a consolidation play. Roku's their number one holding, yep. And she was dumping Tesla. She's been dumping a lot more Tesla. Roku, I'm still expecting Roku to hit about 58 bucks. Make sure you don't make Snap, unless you're trading like 5-minute charts, which I know some of you do, but don't make Snap decisions, especially with after hours price decisions. Because could we easily get a pullback in Asia session? Yeah, because we had a nice ramp today, and a lot of times you do after a day ramp in the markets here, you generally get a pause or a pullback in the Asian session. It's just the way it works. What's more important is to watch how Europe opens. When you say tanking, yeah, that's a big hit with, wow. Did something come out on Facebook? Because that's a pretty big after hours move. Wow. That is a pretty, Facebook looks to retest the lows. That's one that I'd again rather take the Apple and the Microsoft versus Facebook. I'm still expecting us to reconnect with down here around 136. I think they're going to have to slash earnings. They're just riding the weekly rotation zone down. So the 87.5% harmonic is still 177 and the 168. Facebook's not anything I'm interested in right now. Yes, you get more than one gold star, Lauren. So, all right, all these shout outs. Look at all these shout outs to Lauren. Yep, all the shout outs to Lauren. Fantastic. You're doing great. Thank you again. We're getting the play by play, Waka Waka. Oh, are you back in your cardboard box, Waka Waka? By the way, again, big shout outs to Lauren. Facebook tanking with Snap. I trade the one tick chart. You should at least go with a fib number for the tick charts, you know? You could do the 13 tick, you could do the 21 tick, you could do the 34 tick. Huh? What about that? You could do the 55 tick? You could do the 89 tick chart? Intraday, it's better to use 5 minutes or 3 minutes. I prefer 5 minutes. I prefer factors of 3 to 4 time frames. So the 5 minute, the 15 minute, then we go to the 1 hour, then the 4 hour. So let's see. Please do Bitcoin. I'm still very bearish on Bitcoin. It's just in sideways consolidation against the weekly rotation zone. Why am I super bearish on this? Because we've confirmed at least a major topping pattern, but not triggered on the weekly basis yet. We're against the weekly rotation zone, so even rallies back to 35,000 are to be sold in my book. Initial resistance still about 30. If on any pop, 31,800 is very key resistance. Once you start breaking that back below about 27.6, then we're going to retest the lows. Until then, it's just consolidation, and there's no trade yet for me on a short-term basis. But stuff longer term, it's definitely sell the rally mode in Bitcoin. I'm fairly new to trading, and I shorted Tesla at 644. How screwed am I? It depends on your time frame and how big you shorted it and where your stop is. I mean, we know where you shorted, but where your stop is. Remember, I do position sizing based off of. So let's say you shorted down here, which is a little riskier because you were actually at lows with divergences after a huge push down. You're better to try to get your shorts off, especially once you get into some of these higher time frame rotation zones, as we've talked about. But if you do position sizing, for example, you can take larger risk with lower position size because you have a bigger stop. Now, what does that mean? So let's say my risk on a trade is $1,000. Now, if I need a stop farther away, like on any longer term play, the stop still has to be above 800. So if you're short down here, you're going to be short a lot fewer shares if your stop's up here. Why? Because if it's wrong, I'm still losing that $1,000. Versus instead of trying to say with a tight stop and heavy share size, that's a really difficult trade. I think you're fine if it's a longer term position. Loco Roco. I mean, what's your time frame? I mean, we've talked about it here. Plenty of us think we'll be retesting 500 this year easily. On short term, could you see a rally even to 720? Yeah. So it all depends on your size and where your stop is and if you size that out correctly. Tesla is due for another roll. There's just bad. I think it's going to get to pile on Tesla just as it went to going up. Every Tesla could do no wrong. Going down is going to be very interesting. So if you want a news to keep tuning into this channel so you'll learn stuff. And you got to position size accordingly and you got to, in this high volatility environment, and not just with Tesla, you got to use, from my perspective, you should be using wider stops and smaller position size versus tighter stops with larger positions, just the nature of volatility in bear markets. Yeah, the NASDAQ opens back up in 30 minutes now. Yep. And don't overreact to stuff. Yeah, I am moved into a smaller cardboard box, just enough for my head. Lost a big open one due to losses today. Can you refi? Could you have refied the larger one though? Is Tesla, Apple, and Amazon going to tank tomorrow? Already down almost 2% post market. Don't stop worrying about this with the after hours price stuff, especially stop worrying about this. Let it stabilize. Snap could drag down a couple of things, but let the price action play out overnight. Unless you're trying to micro trade something. Now, if you're micro trading the Nasdaq futures when it opens, that's another aspect. But please, you're seeing Snap and Facebook go down on guidance, but this thing could be very different position tomorrow. I'd advise people to not get caught up too much in all the micro moves at this point. You will, look, we could talk about it again. You can get the pullback. NASDAQ's the weakest one, but S&P, let's just take a look at this because this is a stronger one today. It could easily pull back to 39.40 and it doesn't change anything. It could pull back to 39.15. Doesn't change anything. What changes something? 38.73. Don't get too caught up in all the drama with this stuff. It's just going to drive you crazy. All right. Why are 2021 and 2022 model year Teslas spontaneously exploding at much higher rate than prior model years? There's a few theories out there that I've seen, especially the one that's interesting is that they switched with the chip shortage to non-automotive grade chips and capacitors. So that can cause problems, especially if the capacitors rupture. So there's interesting stuff. There's other stuff about there could be with the latest upgrade. But longer term, you also have some of these shoddy workmanship in Tesla batteries. And at some point, all this catches up to things. So we shall have to see. It's why I think you'll start seeing Tesla more and more in the news on negative stuff. Powell tomorrow, the market always goes up after he finishes speaking. I don't know about always. I hope this time the opposite. Why are you guys so bearish? You should want this. I'm not emotionally attached to it anyways, but I love this rally to continue. Why? Because it sets up for some great longer term shorts again. It gets really difficult constantly shorting at the bottom because you do get the rip your face off moves. Remember that. We're going to get at some point that 12-15% rally, at least. So I would rather get some of it out of the way and then look for some topping patterns to reestablish longer-term short positions. It makes trading a hell of a lot easier. Now, if we roll over, there are short plays again. But, it's getting harder and harder to short with drastically oversold conditions with limited downside versus the reward to risk right now longer in the medium term is favoring reward to risk favors an upside move. So the downside is more limited unless we get a full-blown capitulation move. And the upside is more viable to a short term, translating possibly into a medium-term rally, but no signs of that medium term just yet. But the more we rally, it then tips your reward to risk and favorability back into the bearish plays, which is wonderful. All right. You guys are doing. All right. I am am going to wrap this up. You are welcome, Eric's. You have a Zoom put. Well, you might get a little relief if the Nasdaq, but we'll have to see. Remember, map out your harmonics for Zoom tomorrow. Right now, with the gap harmonics, 95. With your gap harmonics, if this doesn't change, if it opened up there, your key level would be 91.80. All right. You are welcome, Wavy. You are welcome, everybody. Again, don't overreact. Everything can turn around by tomorrow. We know the key levels from a statistical standpoint, and that's the way I have to trade them. Could it be all different by tomorrow? Sure, it could. But that's why you use stops. And don't be afraid of losses, and keep your losses small by keeping your position size in line. Especially trading counter trend. And I do agree, we will roll over again. It's just right now it's hard to get good reward to risk to the downside. And we did not have a Black Monday again. With that, if this channel is helpful to you, please do consider subscribing, ringing that bell, and hitting the like button. Longer term people, once I end this, come back and leave some comments, and I will like them and respond to certain ones of them. Please, to keep the channel growing, I will be here 8 a.m. Central Time for tomorrow's live stream on the right before the open, and we will reassess with this overnight price action and determine if we still are going to continue up tomorrow, or if we get turnaround Tuesday and then potentially move up again, or if we're going to tank. You'll have to tune in tomorrow to find out.